Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of our F123 Driver Career Mode here on the channel. Hope you're all having a great day today. Circuit of the Americas on the way. 5 Grand Prix remaining, fresh off of another win and a photo finish in Qatar with Oscar Piastri for Aston Martin. Fresh off the news that they were leaving the sport in Trackhouse Racing, entering the sport, and they had an announcement coming into this weekend. Let's check it out.
We at Trackhouse Racing are so excited to enter the sport next year, and we wanted to reveal what you can expect our car to look like on track next year. We look forward to seeing you on track and winning races next season.
And take a look at that livery there. Now that's not final, but it's pretty close, so you can kind of get the idea of what it's going to look like. Now, post-practice, we are set up for a brief meeting with Justin Marks, of course, him in the Trackhouse camp. They're all here this weekend in a push to sign drivers, and not only myself, but, well, they need 2 drivers. So, Oscar Piastri, Yuki Tsunoda, sounds like they're not safe at Aston Martin when they transition into Trackhouse Racing. You'll look at when Trackhouse, they're approaching NASCAR. Of course, they started as a startup team, but then they purchased the assets to Chip Ganassi Racing, which is a big team, of course, in IndyCar right now. But they did not keep Kurt Busch from the one car, but they did bring Ross Chastain on board anyways. So we'll have to wait and see what things are going to look like for them, but it sounds like they're pursuing a whole new lineup. At the same time, do you get rid of Oscar Piastri? I don't know if you do that. He's been very good, but Tsunoda's also been very good this season. They've got a lot to think on, and they would have a brief conversation, like I said, with myself following free practice 1 here. As you can see, we end up 10th on the board, but before we qualify, let's take a brief listen.
So here's our offer to you: 20 million pounds per year, a ride in the Indy 500, plus some races with our Project 91 program in NASCAR, and maybe some other racing events I could get you in.
I mean, that sounds very appealing, but give me about a week. I'm going to have to go and talk with Christian and see what his offer is looking like. So as we roll into quali, you see it there. Q1 is going to be a breeze. We'll get through no problem. But the offer from Justin Marks, 20 million pounds a year, a ride in the Indy 500, as well as a few opportunities to do their Project 91 program in NASCAR, where we've seen already a lot of success. You know, Kimi Räikkönen's done it, as well as Shane Van Gisbergen from the Australian V8 Supercar Series, hopped over there, won the street race in NASCAR, and now is going full-time NASCAR. He loved it so much. So there's the offer on the table. We still have an offer from Red Bull on the way, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Q2, P10, again, we have been stuck in this 10th place area, and we just can't get out of it in qualifying. Drugovich, Gasly, Lawson, Pourchaire, and Iwasa all out in Q2. But let me know down below what you think about Trackhouse's and Justin Marks' offer there going into next season. Like I said, we got to listen to what Horner's going to offer in the next episode. But Q3, I was expecting about a 10th place effort, and that was the same thing we saw in Qatar. Just qualifying is so much more difficult than the AI are in the actual racing. So it's kind of a hard balance to get it, I guess, right, you know, for both quali in the race. But this is a car that's obviously, you know, capable of winning races, and that's why we showcase it every week after qualifying. We rolled through the final few corners though, and I was expecting P10. It was looking like that kind of lap. It didn't feel like a bad lap, just not quick enough, and we're gonna sure enough go P10 across the stripe, while Albon, Leclerc, Jackson go top 3. Verstappen there, P5, and you can see, I mean, about 0.8 of a second off behind the 2 Mercedes is where we're gonna start on the grid. Let's head to Sunday and get ready to race.
Well, you don't need me to remind you that Formula One is now so beloved in the United States that we race here 3 times a year. But let's give respect to COTA, or the Circuit of the Americas, to give it its full name. This place laid the foundations for this moment and still remains the host of the US Grand Prix. We're racing then today in Travis County, Texas, around the 20 corners of this wonderful Circuit of the Americas. We'll be reaching speeds of around 200 miles per hour here today, and there are plenty of good opportunities to pass, especially through the 2 DRS zones into turn 1 and the long back straight into turn 12. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Alex Albon leads us away from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Jackson, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Sainz, Oscar Piastri, Russell, Norris, Golden Boy, Drugovich, Gasly, Liam Lawson, Theo Pourchaire, Iwasa, Joe, Ocon, Mayer, Butler and Jake Hughes. And now it's time to head down to the track. And joining me again for the race today, Natalie Pinkham. Let's talk about Golden Boy. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
It's been a really solid year so far. There have been some incredible standout performances. But what's really impressed me has been the consistency. With this kind of form, I'm expecting another good race today.
We're ready to roll then. You saw Carlos Sainz getting ready as well. And now, as usual, mediums to hards. No need to really switch things up. Tire compound still is something that needs to be decided for next season. Is Pirelli got a future or not? But we'll focus on that later. Let's get ready to roll.
The formation lap gets underway and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out.
Our pole winner, Alex Albon, starts on softs, the only other car in the top 10 to join him. Lando Norris in the Mercedes here. We'll see how it works out.
As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
All right, team, we know we have the race pace. We didn't show in quali, but we're going to be a fight for the winner today.
I agree, mate. Get the elbows out into turn one here.
Ready to roll then, here in COTA for the final United States Grand Prix of the season. Now, as we got the two Mercedes to go through, but we have a big run down towards turn one, of course, up the steep elevation. You get a great look at it right there. That really puts it into perspective. One of my favorite shots, of course, from the formation laps, I think, on this season there is just looking at that run up towards turn number one. Alex Albon in position to win his first world title. Can he keep that up here as we're lights out? We're racing in Circuit of the Americas. Now we're going to swing to the left of Russell. Piastri tries to cover us off, but we get there. Albon side by side with Leclerc down into turn number one. And is he going to come out in front? No, he is not. Albon comes back around the outside. He'll hang on to the lead, and now he has that soft, fresh rubber. He's going to be able to go and take off right off the bat, of course, on a softer compound than, 8 cars behind him that are on these mediums lined up and ready to go. And more than that, actually, because Oscar Piastri, actually, speaking of him, in the Aston Martin, he's dropped down the order. Look at that. You can see him. He's definitely lost out to, that's Felipe Drugovich right there in front of him on the softs. I believe outside of Lando Norris, that'll be the next car on the softs behind as we continue on down towards the braking zone. In the background is that Devin Butler going up the inside of the Alpine. Maybe a little bit of contact right there. Ocon trying to hang it around the outside now as they continue side by side down this long straightaway. Of course, such a heavy braking zone towards turn number 10 right here. In a Formula 1 car, not a big deal. However, we're going to swing to the right side of Carlos Sainz. We got up to P7 on this opening lap, and it looks like we might be able to gain another spot here. So if we can go from, P10 to P6 on the opening lap, that'll be absolutely fantastic here. We continue wheel to wheel with the Spaniard into the braking zone. A little bit too deep, however, as we're going to go wide and lose the position there, and we have to hold off Lando Norris in the process as well. So we would finish out this first lap in the 7th position behind Sainz, and down that long back straightaway again, another opportunity here on lap 2. This time, though, up the inside of Sainz here. Hopefully this will allow us to complete this pass immediately. Dead even into the apex here. Now we leave, of course, enough room for him to be able to race, and we sure enough are still able to get the job done. So up into P6 behind our teammate of Max Verstappen. A bit of a kick of oversteer right there out of the car, but now just trying to settle in and close in on these front 5 cars here. Now Carlos Sainz, of course, another driver with their future up in the air, and right now I don't think that things are looking great for Carlos Sainz. Like, he's definitely going to have a seat in Formula 1, but I don't think it's going to be with a really good team. So it's going to be interesting to see where things go for him. And Leclerc could be here in Red Bull. Drugovich could be in Red Bull. If Leclerc doesn't end up at Red Bull, I guarantee you he will end up with the new Trackhouse racing team. And then it's basically down to Tsunoda or Piastri, I think, at that point for the other seat. If we, of course, stay with Red Bull and don't go with Trackhouse. I am 50-50 split. I'll be dead honest. I have not decided on either one, Trackhouse or staying with Red Bull. table. We'll really have a decision in the next episode, I think, or two, after the offer that Christian Horner is able to bring to the table. But we do have a meeting with him in the next episode to really figure that all out here. Now, speaking of leaving Red Bull, this guy, Max Verstappen, we already know, headed to Ferrari next season. We're going to go swing around the outside of Verstappen. We're going to take the position there up into 5th place on this 6th lap, 28-lap Grand Prix. You can see on the track map, and from here, Albon's driven away, but eventually he's going to, well, obviously stop driving away, and those soft tires are going to wear Leclerc in front of Jackson right there with a lockup, and that was nearly enough for Jackson to slip up the inside, but surprisingly not able to pounce on it. Jackson hasn't quite had that pace lately over the last handful of Grand Prix. He hasn't won since the British Grand Prix earlier in the season. Now, as we come through up the inside of Tsunoda, down towards turn 10, into the braking zone, we'll clear him with ease there. Now, as we continue to see this back and forth between these Aston Martin drivers every week, where Tsunoda runs better than Piastri, then Piastri runs better than Tsunoda, but they're not, you know, as often right together. It's like one will run in the top 5, then the other one will be like 9th or 10th place, so it's kind of weird to watch that play out. Now, as we have a run on the back of Aiden Jackson, now we're going to try and slip up the inside into turn number 1. We have been absolutely flying in these opening laps here. Now, wheel to wheel with the British driver, we clear him right there. He can't quite get the power down, so up into a podium position. We've been flying here today in Circuit of the Americas. Now is next up Charles Leclerc, as we actually get our first warning of the day right there. Not what we want to do, but we got one more to work with, of course, because the next one after that would be a penalty. But Albon, 2 seconds up the road, and he is now leveled off completely. He's actually starting to fade a little bit. You can see Leclerc just gained about 1/10 of a second, but then he actually loses it. So Leclerc not quite enough pace right now to be able to reel in that McLaren, but 10 laps on those softs, it should definitely be enough for these mediums to be able to roll and start to close in the gap to him. So I was looking for the, well, obvious opportunity to get past Charles Leclerc, and that's going to come right here. Again, we have already just done a spectacular job executing on this run down towards turn 10 today. So we'll take the position from Leclerc up into P2. We need to beat Albon. It's simple. The task is simple because of the points deficit of how far behind we are. We've won a lot of races this season, but the inconsistencies, you know, with mechanical failures or, you know, things going wrong like Austria, that's made the difference because, well, you look at Albon, he's now pitting, actually, as we close the gap down to 1.5 seconds. But Albon has been consistent all season long. His worst finish is like 6. So that's why he's got such a good position going into these final 5 Grand Prix now for remaining after today. We're going to come into the pits here a lap early because I wanted to try and counteract against Albon because I think we have a genuine chance to win this Grand Prix. So we're going to pit a lap early compared to the pit window just to allow myself to not lose too much time to the McLaren, because I think if we stay out another lap, it might be too long, too much of a gap to be able to gain, but I think this 1 lap difference might still give us a fighting opportunity. Albon's right there, right now. There he is, going into turn 1 apex. So you can see the gap. It's going to be about 4 seconds by the time everything gets sorted out here with the tires warming up and whatnot. You see right now it's about 4.3 actually, so it actually might be closer to 5 seconds once this gets sorted out. And yes, it was 4.9 as we come around the final turn. Everybody else starting to make their pit stops. Leclerc's in, Russell as well as Aiden Jackson. And that 1 lap difference is enough to put me, you know, significantly out in front of those guys as well. So that just shows you, you know, the difference of 1 lap of fresh tires. We were 5.5 seconds ahead of Aiden Jackson, who had managed to pass Leclerc as everybody else is now coming into the pits. Max Verstappen as well as Carlos Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda as well. So that will put us into P2, and we're 4.5 seconds behind Albon. But you look at the lap time right now, look at the top right, a purple sector 2, and that would also lead to a fastest lap of the session when we back it up with a green sector 3. So we are absolutely flying right now, and we're actually gaining on Albon. He's on the mediums, and I expected him to have really good pace like he did in the first run, but it wasn't really showing right now. I mean, the gap is continuing to close, 3.7 seconds, so things are looking pretty good and pretty promising. We have 10 laps to go, and of course, 10 laps to go means it's time to go through the grid.
Albon out in front as his late season hot streak continues. So, however, Owen has been eating away at that gap consistently over the last few laps.
Yeah, and I think Owen is going to get there within the final 5 laps at his current pace. These two are really becoming the class of the field as Jackson is forced to watch back in third.
Leclerc runs fourth as he's just hoping to finish this race. Norris has won out on strategy and runs up in fifth currently as Tsunoda and Verstappen are right behind him.
I think Max is experiencing what it's like to have the focus shifted away from him now. He just hasn't had good runs lately, as Owen has been fighting for wins nearly every week.
Russell and Piastri round out the top 10. Drugovich runs best of the rest, currently in 11th.
That young man has a solid future ahead of him, I think. He could be a Red Bull driver as soon as next season.
Lawson down in 14th in the Haas, while his teammate runs 17th.
And I've heard his teammate may be on the way out of the sport next year as well. At risk are Iwasa and possibly Butler, as he might be moving to a manager role within his family-owned team.
And that does it for Through the Grid.
And there you have, through the grid, as you see, Calimere, Ayumu Iwasa, Zhou Guanyu, the bottom three drivers on the grid right now. Not a single retirement here today so far in COTA, but the gap to Albon continues to decrease. And it's not like we're taking huge chunks out of it, but we're taking consistent and solid chunks out of that gap. And now it's come down to 2 seconds with it coming to 8 laps to go. So this is a very realistic option for us to go and run him down. But the intensity is picking up at this point because, like I said, we have to beat him. That's their only option here to keep our championship hopes alive. Yellow flag, and the end of Sector 1, that's Verstappen. Verstappen's out of the Grand Prix with a mechanical failure, and last time that happened, it was in Singapore, and our engine failed within a couple of laps, so that's a little bit concerning, and we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But we come through and around another lap, and look at the gap. It's closed down to 1.3, 1.4 seconds. And we still have 7 laps to go. All we got to do is get within the DRS, and it's game on. And well, as we come through down into the final corner, approaching these final 7 laps, we break within the 1 second margin, but we have to stay through there, of course, through this first sector, which we would do exactly that as well. We continue to close in on Alex Albon now, 0.6 of a second, 0.5 of a second. It's absolutely coming down, and we're going to be about to be, putting some pressure on him here with the DRS that we would have on the run down towards turn 10. Looking up the inside, he's too far ahead there to really make a move and put some pressure on him, so we stay put right there. We got to be smart, we got to be tactical, no need to be too aggressive yet. We've got plenty of laps to work with. At the line there will be, of course, 5 more laps remaining in this Grand Prix here now, and here we go with the DRS again down towards turn 1. Albon protects left, will swing back to the right. He's going to plant himself directly in the center of the apex. He's definitely not going to make this easy. He's here to fight. He wants to win another Grand Prix now. DRS again down the long bank straightaway towards turn number 10, and again same situation. We'll swing back to the right side, even with Albon this time. Actually not quite there, but we still are able to swing it around the outside. Now we have the inside lane here into the right-hander, wheel to wheel with Albon in the McLaren, who's had an incredible season, but we take the lead of the American Grand Prix here from Circuit of the Americas. And now the question is, can Albon stick with us? I think if he can just hold on to the DRS, it's going to be very hard to get rid of him. So I don't think this is over, and he would prove that, because here he is, DRS down the front straightaway with 4 laps to go. He has a run. I'm going to swing left. He's actually going to outbrake me into turn 1. We're dead even here on the apex. This time Albon trying to go around the outside. We slip and slide a little bit. We're wheel to wheel, and I think he might have us here. Hold on a second. We continue down side by side into the S's. I back out of it there. He cuts the corner. I don't even think he probably got a warning for that. But now he was back out in front until the run again down towards turn 10 with that DRS. This time we're going to throw a bit of a curveball up the inside here, wheel to wheel, as we break way too deep into that corner, though. We go wide off the circuit. Albon remains out in front. He is making this a lot more difficult than I expected. Honestly thought once we cleared him once, we're going to drive away with, of course, being able to run him down. But him holding on to the DRS is what's making the difference here. Now again, 3 laps to go, the same straightaway that we made so many passes today. Finally, I think we might have it, but no, he's going to continue up the inside here, but as long as he doesn't lock up and go wide, we're going to be fine. There we go. Maybe the job finally done there. Albon gave it everything he had here, and I respect it. He fought as hard as he could. What does he have with 2 laps to go there? Draining my battery, just trying to stay ahead. This time I'm protecting the right side of the track. Don't want to let him go around the outside like he did last time, and we get through turn 1 a little bit awkwardly, but we stay ahead. But unfortunately, I couldn't quite shake him enough. We pulled about half a second on him through the S's, but he is still right there with a lap and a half to go. Where does he go? He goes to the right side of the circuit again. Look at how deep he breaks in the McLaren. He gets me into turn 10 every time. time, but we're able to stay ahead this time now as we continue on. So I just cannot really afford to let him outbrake me enough to where he clears me on this final lap. That's where I'm concerned. So we got to make sure we're going to brake late into that corner, just not too deep, of course, and wreck ourselves. White flag is in the air here in Circuit of the Americas, and the battle is on. Albon with the DRS up the inside right there. He's going to pass us into turn number 1. He's going to plant it in the center of the apex. We try to switch him back, but it's not going to be enough right there. Hold on, we have the run. Nearly contact there as he continues on the mediums. We're on the hards. He stays ahead as we go through these S's now, and this is all about waiting. You can't make a move through here. You got to be patient. We just got to get through the end of this first sector and set him up for the run down towards turn 10. That's going to be our only option. So here we go, firing it up for the final time, the final real passing opportunity, unless we get really creative, but it should be pretty easy. We stay pretty close, but he's burning through the battery, so we're not going to be closing quite as much. Here we go on the run towards turn 10. We're going to look up the inside. Albon goes defensive. He swings back to the right side. We got to outbrake him, but we brake too deep and too hard. We spun around in front of Albon. Major contact there. We're going to get it back. Rolling damage done to the McLaren. Here comes the other one. Aiden Jackson's going to come through in the last moments, and he's going to take the lead of the United States Grand Prix. Albon's down in third with damage under pressure from Leclerc. We've dropped back from second to second, I guess, as now it's Aiden Jackson out in front. That was an uncharacteristic mistake from myself, and I got to own up to it. I just screwed up. I screwed up so hard on that one, and it's going to be Aiden Jackson who's going to lead the way through the final couple of corners here now. Albon surely not going to be thrilled with that one through the final turn. Aiden Jackson is back on top in dramatic fashion. He wins the United States Grand Prix. Second place is not what I wanted, but yet at the end of the day, we still do gain points on the championship lead because it was Albon that we needed to focus on beating. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there as we do get driver of the day.
That's it then for another magnificent United States Grand Prix. And they've hung on to take a sublime victory here today. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Quite simply, a driver is nothing without the team behind them. So, a deserved winner, but we do have to give a shout out to the team in the pit lane and back at the factory. Very much a collaborative process.
Yeah, that was not what I wanted to do. I knew like I said, I wanted to break deeper than Albon into turn 10 just to make sure he didn't get clear, because he had a couple of moments where he almost got us previously, and I just drove way too deep into that corner, and I don't even think I needed to. I think we were okay to really just brake where we normally brake there, so that was just one of those silly mistakes. I have a history in F1 games of making silly little mistakes here that come to bite us, and that's one of them right there. Now, at the end of the day, we made a mistake, and we still gain out of it by beating Alex Albon, so it's not like it was terrible. It's just the difference was, instead of winning the race, we finished second, and it's Aiden Jackson who slips through. That win right there that Jackson just got instead of a third place effort might be huge for this championship, actually, come these final few races. Somehow Esteban Ocon DNF'd. I don't know when that happened. Might have been the glitch. We've had a glitch before where Norris DNF'd on the final lap after just crossing the line. I think it was Monaco. I think that's possibly what happened there with Ocon. But looking at the standings, I mean, we're still 41 points back. Jackson's back by 18. We're going to have to gain an average of 10 points per Grand Prix on this current situation, this current timeline with 4 Grand Prix left. McLaren's practically locked it up in the constructors. But that'll do it for me. Next up, I think it is Bahrain we're headed to, so that'll be an exciting one. I'll see you guys then. Have a great day.